Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Want to talk to you uh, about a couple out of Boston. The names are Monica Cannon Grant and Clark Grant. Now, Monica is a the founder and CEO of VIB, and it's called Violence in Boston Anti-Violence Nonprofit Organization. And her husband, Clark Grant, was the director, and they have been indicted. Now, you might have seen the articles or not. There's a few articles out here, so I'm going to try to touch on each one of them, hopefully not repeating myself. But this is a Taunton couple, and they've been charged with 18 counts of fraud. Now, a Taunton couple who founded a Boston-based nonprofit has been indicted by a federal grand jury for allegedly defrauding the organization and its donors, along with the state unemployment office and a mortgage lender in Chicago. The U.S. Attorney's Office stated that Taunton residents Monica Cannon Grant, 41, and her husband Clark Grant, 38, are being charged with a variety of fraud-related offenses in an 18-count indictment. Now, um, Violence in Boston is a nonprofit, and it was established in 2017 that aims to reduce violence for people in disenfranchised communities. And then Grant is the husband, and he's the founding director of the organization. And he was charged also last year in October 2021 by criminal complaint with one count of wire fraud and one count of making false statements on a loan and credit application. The pair are accused of 13 counts of wire fraud, as well as wire fraud conspiracy, and one count of making false statements to a mortgage lending business. Now, and then Cannon Grant is also charged with one count of mail fraud. Now, the indictment alleges that the couple solicited donations for the nonprofit, but used them for a wide range of personal expenses and to enrich themselves, according to the U.S. Attorney's Office. From 2017 through at least 2020, Cannon Grant and Grant allegedly diverted organization money to their personal bank accounts, hiding the payments from other nonprofit lenders, bookkeepers, and financial auditors, but I believe it's supposed to be leaders, other nonprofit leaders, bookkeepers, and financial auditors. They allegedly used donation funds for personal expenses, including hotel reservations, groceries, gas, auto repairs, Uber rides, restaurants, nail salons, and personal travel, among others. The defendants also allegedly collected pandemic unemployment benefits while concealing their income, including Grant's salary from a full-time job at a commuter services company. It goes on, the indictment further alleges that um, that from around May 2020 through 2021, Grant and Cannon Grant applied for and collected pandemic assistance despite knowing they were ineligible. The pair also allegedly submitted false information to a Chicago-based mortgage lender when applying for a home loan in July 2021, the office stated. Cannon Grant was arrested Tuesday morning and is set to appear in federal court in Boston later in the day, and Grant's arraignment date has not yet been scheduled. They each face up to 30 years in prison, up to 5 years of supervised release, and a fine of up to $1 million. Now, this particular article is coming from this is coming from is out of Boston, and Kate Robertson is the journalist from info.solidify or whatever. That's coming from there. But there's actually other articles, that stories that have been written, other articles that have been written about this couple. And I'm going to share those with you as well. And this other one says Boston activist Monica Cannon Grant, husband used violence in Boston nonprofit funds to pay for rent, vacations, nail care, hundreds of Uber Eats orders fed safe. And so this one right here she was actually in this particular article, and this is coming from masslive.com, and she actually was uh, with Eric Garner Jr., who is the son of Eric Garner, who had been placed in a chokehold in New York City, and he died. This was in 2015, and she's standing out here addressing a crowd of activists outside the Massachusetts State House. And I'll include that article in here as well. And it goes on to say that the husband and wife founders of a Boston nonprofit are facing nearly 20 federal fraud charges. So there's, like I said, more than one article out here, but they're facing 20 federal fraud charges for what investigators said was a scheme to use money meant for their social activism organization to instead pay for a laundry list of personal expenses and luxuries. Officials said Monica Cannon Grant and Clark Grant, founders of Violence in Boston, VIB, used the organization as a vehicle to pay for everything from nail care and hotel vacations to thousands of dollars in meals at Bubba Gump Shrimp, Shake Shack, and other restaurants. Cannon Grant, 41, was arrested Tuesday morning, which I shared that with you in the previous, video in this, prior in this video, because that came from a different article. But I want to share all different articles because sometimes when we come out and do commentary, there's different articles come out and they say things a little different. So I want to share all the articles with you that I can. Okay. So, following the pair's indictment by a federal grand jury on charges of defrauding Violence in Boston, its donors, and the Massachusetts Department of Unemployment Assistance, according to the United States Attorney's Office. Grant, 38, had previously been charged with fraud in October. Now, the Boston-based nonprofit founded and operated by the husband and wife aimed to reduce violence and raise awareness for community issues in Boston. Now, they received public and private funding. Public, government, and private funding, okay? Which, that could come from private, like people giving money and just, something that's not a government entity. So they receive public and private funding and donations to support their mission, but instead use the money on hotels, groceries, gas, car rentals, car repairs, Uber rides, meals, food deliveries, and vacations. Federal investigators said they did not tell the other employees of Violence in Boston, the organization's bookkeepers or financial auditors, that they had used the money for personal reasons. And right there, as a bookkeeper, you have a right to know because you're getting paid, obviously, to do that job, or you volunteered to do that job, however it goes down. You have a right to know what money is coming in and what money is going out. And when the money comes in, who did it come from? Who sent it? What is it supposed to be used for? And it's supposed to be documented on a program. Also, maybe, documented in a handwrite it and then documented on your program as well. In case the computer goes down, you still have some files here, manual files that you can also refer back to. Because if the system goes down and crashes, at least you have documentation of, these funds. And when money goes out, you know, uh, you need to be able to document what was the money used for, how much went out, and what was it used for, and was it used in the stipulations of what the grant calls for. Because anytime you get grants, you have to use that money in stipulation of what the grant is actually for. You can't do anything you want to do with grant money. You have to use that grant money. If there's stipulations there that you will only buy computers and printers, that's what it's for. If the stipulation is that you will only use it for food, to feed the homeless, to disenfranchise communities or low income children, then that's what you have to use the money for. So, and the bookkeepers have that right to know, when money comes in and when money goes out, it needs to be documented. And then the financial auditors need to know where money is at when they are auditing the books. Okay. So the officials also said that the pair collected roughly $100,000 in pandemic unemployment assistance while simultaneously collecting a variety of income, including from Violence in Boston. Now, they were collecting incomes, is what it's saying, but then all the while, the pair told funders, the people that were funding, giving them donations, funding them, their nonprofit organization, they said that the nonprofit did not pay salaries. But I'm going to get to that too in another article where it says she was collecting salaries. But beginning as early as 2017, Cannon Grant and unnamed co-conspirators. And I wonder who the co-conspirators are. They didn't name the co-conspirators, but agreed to use violence in Boston to personally enrich themselves, prosecutors said. That September, the organization received a $10,400 grant from a Massachusetts department store to purchase meals for needy children in the Boston public schools. I kind of wonder what department store gave that kind of money. That is a pretty decent sized grant coming from a department store. They don't list the name, you know. So 3 days after receiving a check, Cannon Grant and Grant used the money to pay their $3,000 rent, according to court records. They never told Violence in Boston bookkeepers or other directors about receiving the grant money. And I want to stop right there because I was trying to think, because I was going to do this video. I had did actually created this video yesterday, but I honestly didn't get to uploading it. So, but I decided to redo it because I came across another article after I had did the video. The one that I did, the first article that I did, that was the one I came across after I had did the video. So I thought about it and I said, hey, I want to make sure I can include all the videos in some kind of way because there's a little different information. It looks like it's a little more detailed information in some of the articles versus another article. And I think it's about 3 articles that I had come across. And so I was sitting here thinking, now, when the money was coming in, was it just coming in to them? Were they the ones intercepting, going and picking up the mail? Is that what they were doing? And so when they picked up the mail, is that how they were getting it? Because it says they were receiving grant money, a check. So they were mailing them checks to their organization. So they was the only one with the mail key to see what checks were coming in. And so at that point, they did not share or disclose with bookkeepers and the other directors about the money that they were receiving. And is that how they had access to go and put these checks in their bank account and use the money that way? And this is all allegedly because it's allegedly. Everybody is, it should be innocent until proven guilty. So in another program funded by a grant by the Massachusetts District Attorney's Office, aimed to bring 10 at-risk young men and 2 adult social workers from Roxbury to a 3-day violence prevention retreat in Philadelphia. Now, this was another, grant that they were given. The $6,000 that Violence in Boston received from the district attorney never made it to the program, prosecutors said. Instead, charging documents stated Cannon Grant and Grant used it to pay for a $145 nail treatment at a Boston salon, $400 in groceries and other items at a Maryland Walmart, hundreds of dollars in meals at restaurants, including Bubba Gump Shrimp and Shake Shack, and a $1,200 stay at a Sonesta Suites hotel in Maryland. And I'm gonna go on and read some more. And among those awarded grant money to Violence in Boston was Suffolk County District Rachel Rawlins, now the U.S. Attorney for Massachusetts. Rawlins has recused herself from prosecuting the case, Boston 25 reported. In another instance, a $3,000 donation from a Cambridge-based Black Lives Matter organization to feed lower-income children was diverted to a family member of Cannon Grant and Grant, federal authorities said. And I'm gonna stop right here for a moment because I really feel a certain kind of way when you take money away from children that is well needed to feed the children, food. You're taking funds away from at-risk young men, you know what I'm saying, and social workers to help, violence prevention retreat. We talk about the Black communities, right? And we talk about there's not enough resources in the Black community to help young Black men, make better choices, right? But then allegedly, this is what, they're saying. I'm not saying this is true because we don't, it's allegedly. But what they're saying is this couple took money out of children's mouth that needed to have food, and we don't know if these children are even getting a meal to, before they go to school. Are they having breakfast? That's the most important meal of the day for a child. And are they, getting fed? And was that going to be the only meal that they would have for the day? And could they have used, you know, you know, where there's food giveaways and you organize that, and could they have used that, in their home? And then we're talking about 10 at-risk young men that were being taken on a prevention retreat for violence, and how they can rechannel their energy in a non-violent way with two adult social workers, and money was taken from them. It never made it to the program. So I wonder if they were ever able to make it, even though the money didn't get, or did they still get to go? Those type of things. I questioned that when I was reading these articles, because it saddened me to hear that if this money is being misused, as these and as in the district attorney's office is saying, and they've been indicted, because we know that an indictment doesn't mean people are always guilty, but we also know there's something there, and they feel like they need to bring it to the forefront in the judicial system. So I'm hoping that something will come out of it that says that no, they just didn't keep good books, something happened. I'm hoping that this is not what transpired as what they're saying. And so as we go on, it says the pair is additionally accused of using tens of thousands of dollars in donations to afford run-of-the-mill personal expenses. Run-of-the-mill is like your cell phone bill. You may make a purchase on Amazon, and you gotta have food every now and then. You might eat out, unless you got it like that to eat out every day. Gas that needs to go in your cars. And car insurance. We have to all have car insurance. Otherwise, you can't get your license, not license, but your car renewed, car registration renewed without car insurance. And then you have the Uber charges. I don't take a Uber. I never have chosen to really take one. I think I took one once when I went to San Francisco. I took one once, and I really didn't kind of like it. It felt like we went all around the world just to get where we were going. I felt like I could have walked, to my hotel, But anyway, ATM withdrawals. How many of us use the ATM for withdrawals? Clothes at Old Navy. Old Navy have good sales, and they be having clearances. I don't really shop there too much. Every now and then I see things, but their clothes really don't fit me well, so I don't really do that. And then TJ Maxx. I do like TJ Maxx though, and you can find some good deals. You just have to look. And then purchases at the Apple Store. Now, I have to be honest, I've never even purchased nothing at the Apple Store. As a matter of fact, I don't know if I've ever been in an Apple Store. Not that I'm a person that hasn't been out there, but I don't have a need to go in an Apple Store. I don't have an Apple phone or an Apple computer or anything like that, but run of the mill personal expenses. That's what they're saying. And then the money diverted to personal expenses appeared to keep Cannon Grant and Grant financially afloat, court records indicated. So it almost sounds like he was the only one that had a job bringing in regular income, and her job was the founder and CEO of the nonprofit organization Violence in Boston, anti-violence nonprofit organization. So on August 13th, 2019, the date Cannon Grant deposited a $500 check meant to support a Black women and marginalized genders conference. And it's so important to have Black women conferences. It's important. And if that money never made it there, that's bad too, because this was to support a Black women and marginalized genders conference. And and if you go, these conferences, they can get expensive, because a lot of times when you do a good conference, you try to keep your try to keep the you try to keep the expenses low. But sometimes it's hard to do that when you want to put on a good conference, because you want to have material for the conference. You want to make sure there's, water and coffee and tea, maybe some you know, donuts, bagels, maybe some fruit. And then you want to provide a good lunch, a decent lunch for the attendees. So this $500 would have helped at this women's conference. My church and my church, we had a women's conference a few years before the pandemic, and it was awesome. It was an amazing conference, and we had like the breakfast, and then the lunch. And it was such an amazing conference. And we had to put to supplies together, and we came out of our pockets, to make sure that it happened. So it can get expensive with these conferences. So any donation to a women's conference or even a men's conference or a retreat, it can help. So taking money away from that, does put a dent, uh, you know, a dent in something, because it takes away what is needed, uh, you know, and also you may have to come out your pocket even more when you've gotten a donation and that donation doesn't make it in time, or it gets diverted to something that it shouldn't get diverted to, if you know what I'm saying. And they're saying that she had $35 in her personal checking account. So it doesn't sound like she managed money very well. If this is the case, again, this is allegedly. And so when violence in Boston began receiving significantly more donations in 2020, Cannon Grant and Grant began to help themselves to greater amounts from the organization's accounts, prosecutors said. They bought a car, paid rent, and ordered hundreds of times from Uber Eats. And that can become expensive, eating out a lot. That's a lot. It's expensive. And you can gain a lot of weight eating fast food too. You really can. If you're not working out, you're not monitoring what you eat. And fast food is not always healthy for you. It has a lot of calories in it. And you have to even be careful with the salaries that you order, because they can have a lot of calories as well. And so, that can get pretty expensive, and then it can take a toll on your health. Um, and it could cause you to have certain health issues that you didn't have before if you're not watching what you eat. Now, Cannon Grant is due in U.S. District Court in Boston Tuesday. She faces 2 counts of wire fraud conspiracy, 1 count of conspiracy, 13 counts of wire fraud, and 1 count of making false statements to a mortgage lending business. Officials did not say when Grant would appear in court. He faces the same charges as his wife, in addition to 1 count of mail fraud. When the Boston Globe contacted Cannon Grant last week about the federal investigation, the activist said, "I'm clueless to what you're talking about." The paper reported. She later said on a radio show that she was being targeted by the government, white supremacists, and a group of Black people who were jealous of her success. Now, let me stop right there. First of all, you were working with constituents, with government officials. You were working with the district attorney office. Let me see who else. You were working with people, and this money was coming, a lot of it from the government, because it was public and private, but you were getting money from the government with these grants, because there was people you were working with that were funding your organization. So I wouldn't be real quick to say that the government is targeting you. I don't know. I mean, but the government, if they're giving you money, they want those books. They want to be able to see those books. They want those books audited, and they want the money they gave to align with why they gave it, and did you use it for the purpose of them giving it to you. You have to understand that. And then the white supremacists, oh, I can see maybe they was mad that they wasn't getting the funding that you were getting. Oh, okay. And then a group of Black people, people can get jealous. It don't have to be a group of Black people. It could be white people. It could be Asians. People do get jealous of other people getting things, but I don't believe that that's a good answer. I'm gonna just tell you the truth, that that people are just jealous of your success. If you are doing wrong, and if somebody is angry and jealous, believe me, they're going to look into it and they will report you. And it might not be about jealousy. It might be about the fact is maybe they feel like their organization deserves something and they're not getting it because they wouldn't misuse the funding, and you're misusing the funding. I don't know. That's just my opinion. I'm just throwing out some examples of how people might be thinking. But at the end of the day, I would not. I would be quick to. I wouldn't be so fast to say that I wouldn't be so fast to say that the government is targeting this organization. I think that the government has a right to make sure that the money was used for what it's supposed to be used for. So during the pandemic, the couple collected roughly 100,000 in unemployment, despite collecting income from a variety of sources. Which I said that when contacted by the state's Department of Unemployment Assistance to provide evidence that she was eligible to receive pandemic unemployment pay, Cannon Grant conspired with her husband to falsify documents that would prove her loss of income, prosecutors said. In a message to Grant, Cannon Grant wrote, Unemployment caught my ASS with an exclamation mark. Asked me to provide documents by June unless I'll have to pay it all back, federal court record stated. The pair had an unnamed associate draft a fake contracting agreement, which they sent to the Department of Unemployment. So you know what? How come this other person, this unnamed associate, isn't being charged for drafting up a fake document? And then the co-conspirators, they don't name them. And they don't name them. And something's wrong with that. I think that they need to name everybody that's got a part that they played in this situation, because that's what it sounds like, is that that is other people that have something to do with this. And then you know, Monica Cannon Grant, actually, if you remember, she was leading those demonstrators as they marched from Nubian Square to Boston Police Headquarters on April 21st, 2021, when they celebrated the conviction of former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin, and they demanded an end to police brutality. She was actually in the front. And so, um, because our organization was established to reduce violence. But this is a multi-count, indictment that they released Tuesday. But they talk about all this stuff, and they said that they knew they weren't eligible to receive unemployment assistance benefits because they had other sources of income at the time. And they also lied to a mortgage lender by saying violence in Boston assets were their own. They said that those assets were their own to help pay for mortgage fees and closing costs. And I think that they had wind up renting or purchasing a 4,000 square foot building. So the couple maintained exclusive control over organization finances. And that's what I was saying, is they must have been able to get the mail. They had the mail key. They made it clear that they were going to have control over the finances in this organization. And they did not disclose to other Violence in Boston directors, bookkeepers, or financial auditors, as they said, when they used the funds. And that's the bad thing, is because when you're getting funds coming in for an organization, it is not your money. It is for the organization, and it has to be used in stipulation for what that grant money and what it states is for. When you get a check or for grant money and a letter, it tells you outline what it's for, and you have to use that in accordance to what the grant money, the stipulations is, for that grant money. Um, and then Cannon Grant, her attorney, is Robert Goldstein, and he said he expects her to be vindicated. And this is what he's saying. Now, let me tell you what her attorney says. We are extremely disappointed the government rushed to judgment here, he said in an email. VIB and Monica have been fully cooperating, and their production of records remains ongoing. Drawing conclusion from an incomplete factual record does not represent the fair and fully informed process a citizen deserves from its government, especially someone like Monica, who has worked tirelessly on behalf of her community. And then it goes on to say what Grant was previously charged with. Um, and then an email seeking comment was sent to the Federal Public Defender's Office. A voicemail was left with Violence in Boston. And then it says Violence in Boston was founded in 2017 with $1,000 according to its website. So when they was founded, it was founded with just $1,000. And it says that Violence in Boston's mission is to improve the quality of life and life outcomes of individuals from underserved communities by reducing the prevalence of violence and the impact of associated trauma while addressing social injustices through advocacy and direct services, the organization says on its website. So during the coronavirus pandemic, the nonprofit also distributed food. Cannon Grant's activism, including the organization of a rally in the city in 2020 to protest the killing of George Floyd and other Black people by police, has earned her numerous awards, such as the Boston Globe magazine's Bostonian of the Year Award and a Boston Celtics Heroes Among Us Award, both in 2020. The Cummings Foundation, which features prominently on Violence in Boston's website as a major donor for 3-year, $100,000 grant last year, is cooperating with authorities and monitoring the situation, Foundation Executive Director Joyce Variotes said. The foundation, established by the founder of the commercial real estate firm Cummings Properties, has distributed 1/3 of the grant amount, but no decision has been made on whether the next third will be distributed, she said. Now, I'm going to stop right here, and I'm going to say, when we're looking at her attorney is saying that they are steady producing records. It remains ongoing. And I think it's important that it doesn't matter who you are, if you have an organization, or even your own personal records, it's important to maintain good record keeping. It's important to include the appropriate people in your record, in your record keeping. If you have a bookkeeper, they do need to be informed and kept informed of money coming in and going out, and what that money is for, what it's being used for, or how it's supposed to be used. And it you have a program on your computer, and you also have a manual way of keeping the information in case the computer crashes and goes down. And also you should be able to readily pull those records and give them to the government if they ask for them with a subpoena. Most of the time, they have to have you have to have, I believe, a subpoena, but just readily produce those records. Not say they're ongoing, they're producing records that's ongoing, because it makes it seem like that they are not prepared, they haven't been keeping good records, or they're trying to come up with some records, to uh, you know, come up with some records. And let's just hope that they're not making up records, or documents, as they stated in some of these articles, fraudulent documents, and having people to draw up documents. Let's just hope that's not going on, because then they probably going to add even more charges to this indictment if that's going on. So you should be able to pull and present your records immediately when they ask for them. And if you are not the person that knows where they are, there should be somebody in the office that knows where they are. And if the person that's overseeing those records is not there, there should be a backup person that can say that, yes, I'm the backup person, but here they are right here. You should be able to pull those records. And even if the person that's the bookkeeper is out of the office, sick, vacation, whatever, emergency, whatever the case may be, out having on maternity leave, whatever the case may be, there should be someone else there that can step up and, monitor those records, document, do that job, cross train people, that you can trust, that are able to do that. So you might have someone that's really good at record keeping, somebody that's really good at answering the phone, someone's really good at, something else. So it's so important. And again, this is all allegedly, people are proven, they're innocent to proven guilty. That's the way it's supposed to be. But we've seen that that hasn't always worked for the Black community, or, Black people in the judicial system, but it should be that way. And so I want to keep, just looking into this story to see, what else comes out of this. Again, I hope that's not the case. But if it is the case, hey, it is what it is, and people have to be held accountable. But again, just reading where the money, they say the money allegedly went, when children are in badly need of, nourishment, and the money should have went to where it needed to go. And even women need to be able to have women conferences and retreats, to help, learn new things and new alternatives when it comes to things that you may be doing, you might be doing the right way, or even moving towards new information that's out there to help your company grow, or to just be a better person. Just like if you choose to go back to school, you want to learn things, you want to be better than what you are, to help help yourself, your family, and other people. So we'll just keep this story, as we go. We'll see what happens with this story. So thank you for tuning in. I know it's a video. I didn't want it to be that long, but because there was three, articles, and I wanted to get all that information out there, as far as that is concerned, because there are more than one article. So God bless you all, and peace out. Talk with you soon.